Hello, Worlds Asunder listeners. This is both H.P. Holo and Edie Skye wishing all of you a Merry Christmas. Finish listening to this podcast and then go eat irresponsible amounts of food. It's a holiday. You deserve it.
And Happy New Year.
That too.
And with that wonderful message on this Christmas Eve, coming up on Worlds Asunder.
So, enjoying a property such as Star Wars, such as, these fictional worlds that we create, it takes work. It takes work on the part of the person consuming the medium. There's all sorts of made-up characters and places and tech and magic, all these things that you have to kind of internalize in order to enjoy the product.
The stories we've read capture our attention and immerse our minds in settings of all kinds to bring us the spectrum of feelings and deliver the tale of tales to our starving psyches.
Whether it's medieval-style fantasy with mages and knights,
or hard sci-fi takes on the future of space colonization,
or thrillers set in your backyard, world building is the foundation that holds up the narrative, the glue that keeps it from unraveling as readers follow the journey you laid out for them, all to make the stories jump from the pages and burn themselves into our memories.
Welcome, weary writers, to Book Career in a Year's network of podcasts. This is Worlds Asunder, an insightful podcast on world and character building.
My co-host is the one and only David Shadoin, better known as Shady. It's not just a descriptor, it's also his moniker.
And she's the H.Y. Gregor, but you can call her Haley or Sour Patch, your friendly post-apocalyptic wasteland elf.
We know. We have nearly a score of published novels and short stories between us, but who the hell are we to teach you about world building and character development? We get it, which is why we decided to call in some favors.
Each week, we pull from a list of the best and brightest authors, editors, and publishers to give tips and guidance on tackling the age-old questions and provide you with tools on how to accomplish world building like the pros. From environment to magic to characters, how do we strike a balance between what matters to our audiences and what matters to keep it all straight? Open up your ear holes
and your minds
and get ready for us to tear Worlds Asunder.
So, if you're ready,
just knock and enter. Welcome back to Worlds Asunder, the only podcast on the internet giving you world building advice and also delivering Christmas presents to ourselves. You thought I was going to say something nice, didn't you? You thought I was going to say that we were gonna, suddenly shape up our act and not be anything but chaos. But no, I'm not going to tell on us for being nice. That's not something we do here. As I've said in our episode with Casey, I only do nice things behind people's backs. I never do them in front of everybody. Anyway, welcome back to world building. As you can see, we have a full screen today. We have 3 guests on our show today. As always, I am your host, Shady David Shadoin. It's both a moniker and a descriptor. Joining me is Haley H.Y. Gregor, whose recent urban fantasy series is coming around for critical acclaim. And you'll see what I mean by that when the 3rd book releases. She's got some real exciting stuff there. And joining us today to talk about all things tropes. Our guests today, one of them grew up in a family where it was dangerous to say I'm bored. She's also an incorrigible smart aleck. So when her parents said read a dictionary, she did. And then she began writing fun fantasy adventure novels. He is a science fiction and fantasy author whose works include the best-selling Gordian Division series with David Weber, Time Reavers, Kirkus Review's best indie book of 2014, The Wizard's Way, along with his wife, and Monster Punk Horizon Excess with the acclaimed 3rd guest, who has written plenty of your favorite smut. welcome Jacob, Heather, and Edie Skye, the Holos.
Hey, and also hey.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, welcome to Worlds Asunder, where the chaos never ends.
Yes, my favorite kind.
Really,
You
that's
guys
why we
have-
wanted you guys on.
Yeah, oh yeah. And we always love hanging out with you guys at cons and stuff when we get a chance, getting to see you in person. So it was, to our great pleasure that you agreed to come on. But you guys have done so much. Is there other things that you want our listeners to know?
Let's see. We've had so much come out this year that frankly I have lost count. So, but in addition to the other things that you guys listed, let's see here. We just released, or I say we, I guess, yeah, technically it is we. So the Edie Skye pen name, I am kind of the face of it, but Jacob and I both write on it, and our most recent release under that name was Blood Knight Book 3, which is basically magic people hunting vampires. But Jacob, you also had a release, what was this, last month? Jacob is writing in the Titan Mage universe under Edie Skye and had a short story in Raconteur Press's Giant Stomping Robots. If you guys aren't familiar with Titan Mage...
That one's Jacob Holo story.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's a Jacob Holo story, but it's in the Titan Mage universe.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, it's hot girls and giant robots, except for this particular story, which is basically what if John Wick had a giant robot. And then finally, under Jacob, do you actually want to talk about your newest book, or do you want me to just keep talking?
Oh, why don't you just keep going? You're on a roll.
Okay, well, Jacob's most recent book from Bane Books is Freelancers of Neptune, which is set to be the first in the Soul Blazers series. And basically, what Jacob describes it as, like, hard sci-fi space opera, but I'm like, this is a space adventure with catgirls and space pirates and all sorts of crazy fun nonsense. So, yeah. Anyway, if you like fun space opera that's also action-adventure, pick it up. Yeah. That's what
Nice.
I got.
I think releasant is my new favorite word. And we
Yes.
should use it all the time, actually. You should coin that because it's perfect.
I'm not making up words all the time. Sometimes to Jacob's immense frustration. I still can't convince Jacob that hangry is a word, and I didn't even coin that one.
I bet you that's in the dictionary now.
It should be.
It's
a
at
legit
least an
word.
Urban Dictionary. I think that counts.
It is a
I'm
valid
going to keep
and
fighting you on
verifiable
that
state
one,
of being.
Heather.
I'm one of those people where when I say I'm hungry, you have approximately 20 minutes until I am a different person. So I relate heavily to this word.
There's probably a German word that means that too. We could use the
there
German one
probably
if
is.
it's
There's
going to
a German
upset
word for
Jacob.
everything.
So then now I have to ask the question, Jacob, did you feed her before we started this?
We ate. We had dinner.
So we're not going to have a fourth person join us at some point tonight.
No. That would be
Too much
that
chaos.
may break the chaos limit on this podcast.
Yes.
I don't know that there is one. We haven't found it yet.
We would find it. Heather would find it.
Universes would implode.
I am confident of this.
I'm fairly confident. So as much as I love talking to you guys about random shit, and there I did it. I broke it right away. Only because I can. It's my fault this time. As much as I love talking to you guys about random stuff, we did have you on because, we are doing a podcast for newer authors. Such as, and I just realized my camera's been off center the whole time, and I thought that was just the recording.
I thought that was part of the chaos.
Yeah, it's part of the chaos. So much fun. But we brought you guys on so we could talk about using tropes in world building. And the reason we did that is because I've heard you both discuss it at different panels, different places, different times. And as you guys do an immense amount of studying and research when it comes to that. And we thought, who better to talk about just different kinds of tropes and different kinds of genres than our favorite people, the Holos. So first question up, how important is it to understand the tropes in what you're writing?
I saw your mouth move, Jacob. You want to go first?
Well, I guess you can kind of, to a certain degree, answer that question with a question. How much money do you want to make with the book that you're trying to sell?
I was about to say the exact same thing.
It can be pretty important. Heather, you want to step in here?
Oh, yeah. I come at it from two different perspectives. I am a writer, but I am also the principal marketer for me and Jacob. And tropes are handy from a writing perspective because they help you tell your audience what your audience is going to experience, which makes them extra helpful when you're trying to market. Because here's the thing, when people read, whether they're reading fiction or nonfiction, but especially when they're reading fiction, they are reading to have a specific experience, and the tropes you include help them define what experience they're going to have when they pick up your book. And so I think it's super important to know your tropes going into what you're writing.
So if we acknowledge the fact that we all want to make money writing, other than the starving artist who wants to stay a starving artist because principles, damn it.
Martyrdom.
I will die on this hill. I will write whatever I want to write. That's all fair game. If you can find an audience for it, it'll make you money. But what kind of tropes specifically? And Heather, I know you get into, under the Edie Skye pen name, you get into a bit of like the fantasy and a bit of the steampunk stuff, but Jacob as well for hard sci-fi. What kind of tropes specifically then affect how you build out a world?
Trying to think how to answer that one, because honestly, when I start writing, I don't start with tropes. I start with characters. And with me, I'm a very character-driven writer, and a lot of my characters just appear inside my head. And a lot of times they're just fully formed. I may have to do a little bit of guiding. And for me, that's really where the tropes come in. I write a lot of what is effectively pulp action adventure. And to expand out a little bit, one thing about tropes is that tropes are not necessarily universal from genre to genre. Readers in different genres have different trope expectations. And what a writer needs to do is, first off, identify what genre they're writing in, possibly even what subgenre they're writing in, and then identify what tropes readers in that subgenre are looking for. When characters pop into my head, one thing I will do, these characters are pretty much already fully formed, but I will then look at the genre that I'm writing in, see what tropes readers are looking for, and then see, hey, maybe can I ease this character toward this particular trope or that particular trope? And this trope is necessary in this genre, but I don't have a character here yet. Who can I fit in this? And in a way, that tends to guide how I use tropes in world building. It's this weird synergy of this already exists, but then I'm going to mold it, if that makes sense.
So world building just by itself is a huge topic. And I think every author is going to approach that particular task from a different direction. And I'm going to use an example here of how David Weber and I approach building societies. So both of us have developed a fair number of fictional societies. David more than me, but David's been writing a lot longer than I have. And he will generally start with the societal makeup, and then kind of find a technological base that suits that particular society and the kind of story that he wants to tell. Whereas I'm approaching from almost the exact opposite direction, where I'll start with the tech. And then once I have sorted out the kind of tech that I want in this setting, it's like, okay, what kind of society would evolve with this technological framework? And so generally speaking, when I'm doing world building, I'm not really conscious of the tropes. Now, I will say one of the things that tropes are very useful for, other than the, making money, connecting with the reader portion of things, is that they are a sort of agreed shorthand between creator and consumer, in that in a very short period of time, you can let a reader know, hey, this is the kind of world that the story is set in, or this is what this kind of character is. And then on top of that, you can say, do a little bit of a twist, and then hopefully say, surprise and hopefully delight the reader, instead of, I don't know, pissing him or her off with subverting expectations, which is honestly the first time they ever came across that phrase was with The Last Jedi. And this is a topic that Heather and we've agreed that it cannot be discussed in this household.
It's up there with politics and religion.
I was going to say, you said no controversy.
So here we are, about halfway through the episode. I'm going to have to issue a trigger warning. The remainder of this episode, next 15 or so minutes, are going to be focused on Star Wars. However, I'd advise you not to skip through it. And this is kind of a warning for both audio and video listeners. If only because Jacob and Heather provide a lot of good insight onto tropes and how not to subvert expectations, or how they felt betrayed using the anecdote of the Star Wars sequelogy, as it were. Stick around. Enjoy.
But
I'm real curious now, because I have a hot take on TLJ too, and I know, like, Casey Azella, myself, my big co-author who published with my first novel with, she and I are kind of on opposite sides of that argument, but I won't make you go into that here. I'm going to tease everybody, and maybe I'll eventually include it somewhere else. But sorry, Jacob, go ahead.
I mean, I can go into it very briefly here. Is that there are very few movies that I openly hate, and The Last Jedi is a movie that I hate, and it comes down to a very simple reason. There are a lot of reasons, but I think the fundamental reason is that it's disrespectful to the viewer. And in that regard, so enjoying a property such as Star Wars, such as, these fictional worlds that we create, it takes work. It takes work on the part of the person consuming the medium. There's all sorts of made up characters and places and tech and magic, all these things that you have to kind of internalize in order to enjoy the product. But there's an unspoken agreement. And the agreement is that, yes, in this case, the author, I'm making you do this work, but I'm going to make it worth your while. And what The Last Jedi does is it takes work that, fans have put in, have, invested in the series, and takes a giant dump on it.
For additional context, guys, Jacob used to be a massive, massive Star Wars Armada player, so he knows all of the data about all the ships. Like, he knows how many little ships the Star Destroyers can carry around. And Jacob got mad at The Last Jedi like 30 seconds in because the right number of ships were not on screen. Yeah.
Did you pause it and count?
Watching Jacob's reaction to The Last Jedi was a spectacle. It was hilarious at first, but then we put a Last Jedi limit on the household discussion.
You literally have the one scene where the fleet of Star Destroyers launches fewer TIE fighters than there are Star Destroyers. They are carriers in space. They are basically battleships / carriers, and they launch fewer fighters than there are carriers.
That would be a fair critique if I could actually remember what you're talking about, but
I saw
and I
it
won't.
once.
I won't argue
I
with you.
didn't enjoy it.
Did you say you second that?
Sorry, no, I saw it once and I didn't enjoy it, so I haven't watched it again. So my memory is very fuzzy.
All right. So since we have it here, TLJ, the trope that didn't meet expectation. What is the issue with it there?
For me, I expect my heroes to be heroic. And you have everything they did with Luke Skywalker. And here's the thing. I'm not nearly as huge a Star Wars fan as Jacob is. Star Wars is effectively pulp science fantasy. Mm-hmm. And when I'm reading pulp, I want a specific kind of hero. I want a specific kind of adventure. I want a specific kind of ending. And The Last Jedi didn't really deliver that for me. I fully acknowledge that it was trying to subvert expectations. But there are ways to subvert expectations in a way that honors the genre. And I don't think The Last Jedi did that. And so it's like, I can acknowledge for some it's a good movie. It comes down to who the audience is. And that's something that I have especially come to in recent years. I have begun to have a lot of respect for specific audiences and how works are guided at them. Because you have, especially with a lot of modern franchises that were formerly directed at men, you have a lot of elements coming in where the stories are directed at women. Men and women interact with entertainment differently. They have different emotional expectations. And if you look at certain things that are directed at women, the male viewers tend to dislike them because they're not using tropes that are directed at male viewers. They're using tropes that are directed at female viewers. And female viewers tend to enjoy them. But I think knowing it's one of the reasons why I think knowing your audience, knowing your tropes is so hugely important.
Yeah, that's fair. Jacob, did you have anything to add to that?
So I guess talking a little bit about The Last Jedi, the character of Luke Skywalker is where I have the most issues. There are certainly a lot of technical nitpicks that I can make about the space battles and whatnot, but the character of Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi is simply not the same character as portrayed in the original trilogy. Now, I'm not saying that you can't, over a time span, get a character to transform. You certainly can. There are many of ways that you can go about that. But in this case, we're talking about a hero who basically went into the lion's den to save the irredeemable, to save Darth Vader, and he succeeded. And we're supposed to then believe that because this guy sensed, an inkling of evil in, or like potential evil, that he would, draw his lightsaber and be ready to strike down one of his students, a relative of his, on top of that. And it's like, I don't think so. That's my biggest fundamental issue with that, is that it's essentially like a really, in my mind, sloppy retcon of his character, and it's not true to the previous movies.
At the risk of making this a Star Wars podcast.
Sorry.
Because it's not your fault. I opened this can of worms and I'm real excited about it.
No, we heard the word controversy and we said yes, please.
Yeah. I said, give me more of that, please. So let me pose this to you. Did episode 7 not set him up for that?
I mean, in episode 7, we had where, he had left We didn't know why he left. And I will admit, I haven't seen, The Force Awakens, or I've only seen The Last Jedi once. And I've actually never seen Rise of Skywalker.
Of the three, it's my least favorite.
So my memory's a little bit fuzzy when it comes to The Force Awakens. But
The Force Awakens, they did mention that Kylo was a disciple of Luke's, and that he was driven away. That's the only reason I asked, because
right, yeah,
it is a fair criticism. I think it's a fair criticism of Luke's character in general, but I feel like it was set up in The Force Awakens, and it wasn't just a problem with TLJ.
I didn't really have issues with the setup performed in The Force Awakens. I just think that how, so there was, as J.J. Abrams terms them, mystery boxes were planted in The Force Awakens, and that particular one got opened in The Last Jedi, and it's like, oh, Luke is an entirely different character. Okay. I mean, and it starts with, you have the, how the seventh movie ends. They're on top of the island. She's got the lightsaber outstretched. He takes it. He chucks it over his shoulder. It's like, okay. What? What's going on here? And, like I said, you can get a character like that from a high point and have him hit a low point, but very low point. But from a narrative standpoint, this is also, in my mind, just bad form, because you've had stories with this character. You've had that character's arc, and then you've had kind of resolution, and it's actually, I think it's, in this regard, the way that they treated Han Solo is some ways worse, because at the beginning of A New Hope, he's the the smuggler. He's like, I'll go save the princess, but I want to get paid. I want my money. And then you have, in the Return of the Jedi, that he's transformed into, he's evolved into a character who's willing to sacrifice himself to save others, and he doesn't have to in that case, but he certainly comes across as someone who's willing to stand up and to fight the good fight, and to be there for his comrades, and on, all those redeeming qualities. And then you go into The Force Awakens, and he's smuggler, deadbeat dad. This is, and then he gets killed off in that state. You've taken him from a high, you've dropped him down to a low, and then you're going to kill off this beloved character. Well, what? And I can speculate, why, that they were doing these sorts of things, but from a storytelling standpoint, my instincts tell me, no, you shouldn't be doing this. There are ways to, say, shift, the previous generation of characters to the side, to have new characters come forward as, the stars, without character assassinations. You don't have to destroy them from a character standpoint, in order to have that generational transition between characters, you can shift those characters into support roles. You can have them go out in blazes of glory, sacrificing themselves so that the next generation can come forward. There's all sorts of ways that you can go about that. But no, they turned Han Solo into a deadbeat dad, and then they killed him. And then they turned, Luke into a hermit, and they killed him. And then Carrie Fisher died.
Yeah, they killed the wrong
they,
characters.
For real.
Yes, and then they didn't have a choice with her.
Welcome to the end of the episode. I know some of you didn't think you might survive that last half. Got real controversial there, talking about Star Wars, the new parts, but there was a lot of good stuff to talk about when it came to tropes and character building. And the Holos are always a blast. This week, you're listening to this on Christmas Eve or later, and so look for Chernobog's Wrath out on December 27th. Thanks, as always, to Nick Thacker and Book Career Network for hosting us. All of our links to everything we discuss in every show are in the show notes, or if you want to try and follow some new people, maybe you've never seen them before. Next week, we have the Holos back on, as well as Edie Skye for the Trope Cerberus, Part 2. Yes, there is still 3 of them. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, thanks for helping us tear the worlds asunder. We got one more message for the holidays, but after that, we'll see you next time.
Hey, Merry Christmas, Worlds Asunder fans. From all of us here at Worlds Asunder, I know you're probably listening to this mid-episode. It's the end of part 1. Thanks for coming by on Christmas Eve, and we hope you have a happy holidays.
Go eat all the desserts. I'm with you in spirit.